Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
If cowboy boots are on the holiday wish list, give the gift of Tecovas. Their Western boots for men and women are handcrafted from top-notch hides in a variety of timeless and fashion-forward styles that'll have everyone on your list saying yeehaw. Or stop by your neighborhood Tecova store, grab a cold one, and shop the finest leather and Western goods in the land. Start off gifting season on the right foot at Tecovas.com. That's Tecovas.com. Don't go gently, y'all.
Hey, it's Jim Chapman reminding you that if you have not heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. 1, it's free. 2, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. 3, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's really everything you need to make a podcast in only one place. It makes it easy, folks. So do me a favor, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hey y'all, it's Woody Overton, the host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, and you're listening to Local Leaders, the podcast.
Hi folks, I want to tell you about Denham Springs Fit Body Boot Camp and their 28-day, $77 Jumpstart program. There's no strings attached and really no reason not to try. You can be in and out in just 30 minutes, and best of all, these 30-minute sessions are scheduled throughout the mornings and evenings to fit your busy schedule. These 30-minute sessions are fun, positive, encouraging, and you can even sign up online. Just visit getfitdenhamsprings.com. Denham Springs Fit Body Boot Camp, a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to Local Leaders, the podcast. We have a guest today that I can guarantee you a lot of us have had interest in lately, and that is the insurance world. TWFG Insurance's own William Waldrep is back.
Hey, I am back.
Second appearance on Local Leaders of the podcast, but first appearance in this booth.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Much nicer in here.
Yeah.
Nice and quiet.
Nice and quiet. Got a little soundproof going on in here, and some new equipment for you, so headphones this time around, so we can actually hear ourselves in our volume.
This is nice. Nice change of pace.
Yes, indeed. So, lately insurance has been such a big topic. I've had a lot of people ask me, have that insurance guy back on the show again.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Well, I'm glad to be back and glad to just help out and do what I can as far as talking about it and helping maybe, answer some questions that people may have or may be on their mind.
Absolutely. And of course, William Waldrep is on at the TWFG Insurance right there in the Antique District, right?
Yes.
Right next to it, really, right across from City Hall.
Across the street from the Arts Council building.
Yeah. Yeah. Downtown Historic Antique District, which October 2nd, they have Fall Fest
I'm
coming
excited.
back.
It's nice. So, it's
really
good that it's kind of bouncing back in downtown Denham because, downtown Denham has always been kind of an interesting place as far as, coming and hanging out and with Spring Fest, Fall Fest. And growing up here, it's always been nice just to come down. I'm glad that's starting to bounce back because I know with COVID and everything, that's been an issue. But
oh, it has. And I'll tell you what, even Spring Fest, which it was hot. God, it was hot. It was hot out there, but it was popping. They had tons of people and people were ready to get out, I think, again then. So Fall Fest, even more fun because the weather's kind of changing. And
absolutely.
those of us that can't stand the heat. Like me.
And it's great today, because today when I walked outside and left my house early this morning, it was 70 degrees. And I was just like, why am I going to the office today?
Yeah.
But it's work.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the weekend's supposed to be nice too, so hopefully it'll stick around a little while. Now, I asked a lot of my listeners for topics that we could discuss and things that maybe they would have questions about, and they responded. I say, man, could you ask a guy this? So probably the biggest question that I had and things that people wanting to know about were hurricane deductibles, and that's probably not the proper term, but that's what everybody knows it as. Tell us about that first of all.
Well, with your deductibles on your homeowner's insurance, and that's probably what most people are worried about right now anyway, because of the storm that had just passed, and that's what's fresh in their mind. Yeah. Deductibles can be one of two things. They're going to be a flat rate, which is like the typical like $1,000, or you have a percentage deductible. And that's usually, and that can go both ways. I mean, you can have, because you have your AOP and or all perils, so fire, theft, things like that of that nature. Yeah. And then you have your wind, hail, hurricane, named storm. It's kind of, some of those companies bind those all kind of into one deductible. Yeah. But there are a few out there that have a 3 deductible plan. Louisiana, I think, is one of the few where you can find 3 deductibles, where you can have an all perils. You can have a hurricane. And it's just how they wrote the laws and the rules for Louisiana. So it's, but the most thing that most people don't realize is, there could be a separate, like, don't look at your all perils deductible and think that's because that's what you're getting if you're $1,000. Now, a lot of people, there are some companies that have that flat rate, and we wrote a bunch of them that were flat rate for a while. A lot of those companies will probably get away from flat rates. I don't know yet. I mean, that could happen, but you see the percentages. So I know that was the biggest, question I had. They'll look at their point. Well, I have a 2% hurricane deductible. What does that mean? Well, in the event that you have a loss that's, let's say, $100,000, or let me back up. If you have your coverage A, so it's going to be based off that 2%. That 2% is going to be based off your coverage A. Yeah. So your coverage A is the value of your house that's placed on there when you insure it. So if your house is worth $100,000, your coverage A is $100,000. If you have a 2% hurricane deductible, then it's 2% of $100,000. So rough math, $2,000.
Yeah. So, now let me ask you just real quick before you move on. So some people overinsure their house a little bit. Yeah. I don't know if there's a standard average people overinsure it, but would it go off of the overinsured amount or just off of the value of the home? Whatever it's insured for.
It's going to be whatever it's insured for. And a lot of times that some people don't understand that, like, well, I only bought my house for $180,000, but my coverage, my coverage for the house is like $225 or, or even higher. And that's because we run a replacement cost estimator, and that replacement cost helps determine what it would cost to rebuild that house as of today. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. So in the event that it burns down, there is a debris removal fee that's placed on that as well. Yeah. So they'll have that. But a lot of times that why it may look like it's overinsured, it's not really overinsured, because they want to make sure that replacement cost estimator is at least dead on, because if you get 100% of your replacement cost, a lot of these companies give you the additional replacement cost over and above, so it helps combat things like inflation and material
costs.
Look
at the cost of houses now compared to a year ago.
Right. So, I mean, that's the reason why, because they want to try to at least, if your house did burn to the ground today, and, if lumber had gone up like it has, you at least can rebuild your house the way you had it, as opposed to having to, underbuild, I guess, is, or have less features than what you had before.
Well, that makes sense. And because if your house burns down and all the money that you had it insured for was to pay off your loan, your mortgage, for example, right, you don't have any money for a new house at that point. So you paid, Wells Fargo, but now you're homeless. Yeah. And so it makes sense that you would insure it for the value, overinsure it to kind of allow for inflation, as you say. So you got that standard, I guess you would say, standard deductible. Right. And then what determines like the hurricane? When does that kick in? Does it have to be a hurricane?
There are a couple triggers for that. So once a hurricane or a storm, name storm is heading this direction. The name storm deductible triggers at, I believe it's 39 miles an hour.
Gotcha.
Sustained winds. So, and of course, once that name storm hits 74 sustained, it's categorized as a hurricane. So that's when your hurricane deductible would actually be triggered. So if you did have 3 separate deductibles, if it never reached more than like tropical storm, then you're just based off of, the tropical storm, wind and hail type deductible. But once it triggers that hurricane deductible setting at 74 miles an hour sustained, that's when that kicks in, and that's when you would have to use that hurricane deductible. But like I said, some of those companies have the wind, hail, and hurricane all wrapped into one deductible anyway. So
yeah, and I would imagine it's as a lot of storms, as we know from living in Louisiana, they'll be hurricane strength, but when they actually hit, they're tropical storm strength. So
correct.
I wonder if that would affect.
Yeah.
Or is it just a name?
Yeah. No, it's going to be a lot of times. That's why you see a lot of them. They will say actual name storm on there. I think it's kind of a workaround.
Yeah. Tell a phone, tell a friend, tell everyone if you have been to Look at Me 4D Imaging. They have been nominated for Baton Rouge Parents Magazine's 2021 Family Favorite. Voting began September 1st, but it continues through September 30th. Please take a moment if you're a watcher of my podcast and go vote for them. And the best news is you can vote once per day. Look at Me 4D Imaging is your one and only local 3D and 4D early gender determination ultrasound studio located right here in Livingston Parish. They are here for all of your before birth ultrasound needs. So check them out on the web at lookatme4dimaging.com, and don't forget to vote. I'm going to include the link in the comments or the description of this podcast. Thanks so much. No, I get it. And it makes sense as frustrating as it is. And look, a lot of people, I know we discuss this off camera, but a lot of people, they didn't know about it because they've never referred to it. Now, when you sign your paperwork and stuff like that, you go over things with an agent like you are, right. Y'all make everybody aware of that. And
I mean, we try to explain coverages to them, as much as possible. But the big thing that you see, because coverages, those deductibles don't change.
Yeah.
I know some of the other, like State Farm, they changed when they had that 5%. Mm-hmm. They were allowed to write 2%. So they did send letters out to drop that deductible down. Of course that does affect rates and things like that. But that's kind of the only time that really happens for a company is that they're lowering it and they're giving their customers the opportunity to lower that. Yeah. But as far as my companies go, with the amount of homeowner companies that we do write, they never change. Unless it's something like we've had some after the storms of 2020, we did have a couple of companies like set minimums for new business, but everybody else was grandfathered into the old rates.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, it's...
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And it's just more risk, I think, is the primary concern for that from an insurance company standpoint.
Right.
And it's important to note that TWFG, y'all would basically be like a broker. So TWFG will find you the best rate that they can through a conglomerate of insurance companies that they represent. Is that the best way to put that?
Correct. Yeah, because we're an independent agency, and as an independent agency, we represent just depending on. I mean, TWFG home office has 350 companies at our disposal. Now I don't have that many. I don't write that much. It's too much to spread around.
Yeah.
But we still have in my office. We still have a dozen plus just homeowner companies.
Yeah.
And then we have separate auto carriers. A lot of them are monoline. So a lot of our monoline, which means, they only sell like homeowners. But we do have several to choose from. And we do have some that bundle it like, your typical State Farm. So like, Progressive has they have ASI, so they own that. So that's kind of a Progressive home and auto, and they can, umbrella. You can do basically you can write everything with Progressive. But but for the most part, as an independent agent, we try to just go find what best suits that customer's need, because they may have an older home that doesn't fit what, some of the bundled companies say, like Progressive. It doesn't fit them. Their auto might be good. I can write that. but the homeowner rate might be kind of off and expensive for them because that's not the market they're in. So if they have like an older home, so we've written a few homes that were in, I think, Jackson, Louisiana, and you're talking about 100-year-old plus homes. So there's a handful of companies that will write them.
Yeah.
And so in a standard company, a lot of times it's the premium is like so high for them that we can keep it in-house and get them something else. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, what a great advantage just from the aspect of you can kind of shop for the people and say, hey, here's the best bang for your buck or whatever. And so shout out to TWFG on that. Now, to sum up the hurricane deductible aspect of this, all of that I would imagine should be on someone's deck page.
Yeah, it's going to be on your deck page, and it'll be listed out. A lot of times, like some of my companies, there's one that we do right. It has a bold sentence at the top of it that says, in the event of a hurricane, your deductible is, and it has it's already got it figured out. So the one I looked at today for this lady was like $8,687 because she had their coverage A was $400 and some odd $1,000, and so their deductible is 2%.
Sure,
but I'm unfortunately I think that's the way it's going to go going forward in these companies because of we've been hit now with 5 storms basically in 2-year period.
Yeah,
and the companies that didn't survive financially last year, they had to be sold off to other companies, and now some of these other companies that have still kind of hung around that did the flat rates. I can imagine we're going to see kind of a percentage across the board go up. I don't want to scare anybody because I don't know for a fact, but I just can't see how they sustain these type of losses and not do that. So, but yeah, that's, I had this question sent to me or asked of me, like, why are we just now talking about deductibles? I'm like, well, listen, we talked about it when you first bought it.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want to call you up every year and talk to you about your deductibles because nobody wants to talk about deductibles. That. And so I did try to explain to him, like, listen, this is one of those things, like, whenever the best way to do this, that way you're not caught with your pants down when storms come in, basically, is start, like, during your spring cleaning or if you're doing your taxes. A lot of times the tax season is the best way to look at your coverages because tax season is in the spring. It's before hurricane season. Mm-hmm. You got to have your homeowner's insurance anyway because the fair plan stuff, everybody's asking for it on their taxes. That might be a time to look and see, make sure you're all good, that you do have your coverage is still there because, sometimes that does happen where your mortgagee is paying it, mortgagee forgets to pay it. Shockingly enough, it happens more often than not. But, that's a good time to sit down and just kind of evaluate what you got because you don't want to evaluate it as the storm's getting into the Gulf or as it's bearing down on Louisiana. Yeah. That's the last time you want to look at your,
That's right.
So.
And that's a great lead in to my next question, which, you have people and they do that. They, the hurricane gets in the Gulf and then they're like, oh man, what is my coverages looking like? And they pull out their deck page and they start looking and they're like, I need to increase that. Or even worse, maybe it's so out of whack that they need to add something. Can you do that with a hurricane in the Gulf? No.
If you're going to add, depends on what you're adding. But more times than not, there's usually a moratorium that goes in for writing new business. And a lot of times that is also adding business. Now, we've had some where we were going to closing like the day after, and you just got to
home closing. You're talking.
So you got to get that, get those bound beforehand. So a lot of times, if we're looking at a storm maybe getting into the Gulf by Friday, and they have a closing on Friday, we want to go ahead and bind that thing well in advance because in the event of, or even if they're trying to close the following week and the storm's going to fall in on a Friday and they're trying to close Monday or Tuesday, let's go ahead and bind that thing a week in advance or better for the date. Yeah. Because once the storm, we don't know how long those moratoriums will last because I can tell you right now, I've been under a moratorium with most of my companies now going on, 3 weeks post-storm. Wow. So, I have maybe 2 or 3 companies that are even writing new business at this point in time. So, it's one thing for people to keep in mind is especially with regard to the insurance companies is the state in which we live is prone
to not only hurricanes but tropical storms. You have floods, as you know, in the last 5 years and things like that. So they get nervous, you know, and so in order for them to justify the risk of insuring you, you're going to pay a little bit more. It's kind of, but believe it or not, Louisiana as a whole, really compared to some states, is still relatively inexpensive on insurance.
Absolutely. Florida is probably one of the worst as far as home goes. I think and I know this doesn't mean anything to anybody, and I'd have to explain it out math-wise, but their rates are $1.20, so it's $1.20 per thousand, and it's a formula that goes into it. But here we're like quarter of that. I mean, but that'll change because with the storms, like we saw a bunch of companies, and they're driven by, like, especially in the independent market. So the companies that I represent, those homeowner companies are basically driven by their reinsurance rates. Mm-hmm. So their reinsurance, so you might have a company like Lighthouse that's getting their reinsurance through, say, Lloyd's of London. So Lloyd's, a lot of times, if they're reinsuring another, so, you know, Company A is reinsuring Company B for writing homeowners insurance. Company A basically has all the control over Company B on what they can and can't write. Because, and that's, you know, that's what's happened in the past, is where, you know, the writing company, the homeowners company that we represent, is they'll have their reinsurance rates. I've had several that their reinsurance rates have doubled. So where there might be 24 cents, I think, is what one of the last reps I was talking to. It went from 24 cents to 48 cents, and, you know, that's on their rate. And, you know, and that sounds like not a lot of money to some people, but as you know, the formula comes out to where, I mean, that's why they start doubling your rates, is because their reinsurance has a lot of control over what they can and can't write. So they came in and basically told them, there's a certain criteria that your houses have to meet. And this falls, they'll audit the book a lot of times after their book after a storm. So after 2020, I know some of those reinsurance companies audited some of these books, because, I mean, we get the aftermath of it, because they're dropping people, you know, because if they've been on the books for maybe a year or so and it's not a profitable business, they're out. So
no doubt.
I mean, it happens. I mean, that's the unfortunate part of this, but, you know, but that's why you have an agent too, is where, you know, in the event of you're going to get, you know, if they're going through their books audited and getting rid of a bunch of customers that may have never even had a claim, you know, it's just the nature of this, living in this area, in this region. So, but that's why you have an agent that'll go in and find you something else.
That's right.
There's other companies that will take your business.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Hey ladies, it's Pate with Idaho Lane Spa and Boutique, located in Walker. We offer all things skincare, hair care, makeup, spray tan, lashes, and more. And we have a full selection of clothes. And we also do private events, from birthday parties, bridal showers, and more. So stop by today and get your queen on, making every woman a queen. See you soon.
Now, let me ask you, I'm glad you segued kind of into that. What is the role of your agent like after a storm? So, you know, there's probably a misconception on what an agent really does after a storm, and because in your case with TWFG Insurance, you're more of a broker. So the insurance company that these people have are people that don't necessarily work for William. You know, I guess would be a good way of saying it. So kind of explain that to me.
So the role of an independent agent, especially after that, I mean, it's kind of your time to shine a lot. You know, you want to be there for your customers.
Sure.
But I mean, it also varies on the agent too. I mean, there's a lot of, like, when I knew we were going to be out, I figured I was going to be out of power, which my office was out of power for a week. Yeah. You know, I was working from home. So, I mean, it was just kind of like, bear with us, because, you know, my phone was forwarded to my cell phone, and you left that message, like, you know, in the event that you need, you know, immediate assistance, that if I can't get to you, call the writing company. So that's the beauty of that too. There is going to be disaster claims lines for, you know, most of these companies, and some of our companies are bigger companies like National General. They had a truck out, like 18-wheelers out at I think was it Lowe's, or I can't remember. Anyway, doesn't matter. but they have catastrophe units that come out and help with claims and things like that. So I mean, really and truly, the role of us is, I mean, we want to try and help and do as much as we can as far as filing a claim for a customer. We want to be there to help answer questions in anything we do. And then, of course, a lot of that gets turned over to those claims adjusters. And so, if they haven't heard from the claims adjuster in a couple of weeks, we do try to light a little fire under them. Hey, look, this person hadn't talked to you in a while. Please give them a call. I mean, you want to try and keep them, making sure they're getting their job done, because in, grand scheme of things, it does reflect on us too, that,
sure,
if something doesn't get paid, even though it's not me per se, I'm not going out and writing, Mr. Smith a check for, his storm damage. It's the company that I wrote him with. They're doing that, but it still looks, reflects bad on me that, I just, hey, here's an 800 number, good luck. And you don't want to do that.
No.
And even still, like those customers that did call, because we get notifications that they did, file a claim with the company.
Sure.
It's always good to pick up the phone and just say, hey, I saw that you filed a claim. Just want to make sure everything's okay. If you need anything, you have any questions, feel free to give us a call back, or, anytime. So, you want to do as much as you can. So it's just, and I think that varies from agent to agent too. So.
Yeah, and I think that's an important reason people need to deal with local agents, when they're even shopping for insurance, because when things like this do happen, at least you have someone you can reach out to that's local that can explain to you what's going on. Because one thing with the general public is we don't deal, hopefully you don't deal with insurance that much. You don't have a bunch of catastrophes at your house where you're constantly having to file claims. Yeah. And so that insurance agent, such as William, this is what you do every day. So it's something where he's more than happy to, speak to his clients and tell them, hey, this is what's going on. This is why your deductible is what it is. And kind of work with you through that process. If you have problems with the insurance company, maybe he can light a fire, as you said, under somebody. Whatever.
And it also gives you the opportunity for other people that you do business with that, referrals wise, I guess, because I've got a roofer that I do business with. I've got a plumber that I do business with.
Yeah.
And, oddly enough, I had one claim where the lady's tree, the oak tree, pulled up as it fell over. The root system had made its way under her modad and pulled up her modad. So, I mean, that was perfect referral from a plumber.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's all, because that helps too, because that lady was so appreciative, and that's what you want to do. You just want to be certainly a helping hand to that person, because they just went through a catastrophic event. Yeah, you did too, but your job is to help these people too. I mean,
that's right.
So, I mean, those types of things is kind of what makes you shine as an agent. Like, hey, look, I've got a guy that can help you. He'll be on, and especially if it's somebody that you trust and that will be there to do their job. That really, really makes you look good. So.
It really does, and people are under a lot of stress. Yeah, anytime they lose their biggest investment, or even a piece of their biggest investment, and they don't really know. I mean, most people don't know what to do. They call insurance. That's what the process is, and so that's what they do. And so it's good that you deal with someone local that can at least explain to you the process and what you need to do and those sorts of things. Now, from your experience, what would you say are some endorsements, which are, if I'm paraphrasing here, these would be additions that you would add to your insurance, kind of like stamps. What would you say were some good ones that people probably need to have? Sewer came up to, as a thought to me of something that's always good to have.
Water backup and sump overflow is a big one that is newer. So that's a good one to always have. And it's usually, most of my companies have it now, and it's usually like a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $25,000, $20,000. That's always good to have, because in the event you got backflow through a toilet. I mean, that's always good to have.
Happened to me in the flood.
And
my sewer backflowed before I flooded.
Yeah. So, and as long as you have proof that that's
that was the problem. I saw it, but I did not document it. So film it next time with your cell phone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we have cell phones and we film everything. So film those random things that happen like that, because if it's starting to backflow, that's technically a little different than backflow like that is different than floodwater.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's another thing. Like wind driven rain is not floodwater. So if it's wind driven and into the house, it may soak the inside of the house.
Well, here was the interesting thing with that. Had I had proof of that, which I did not, but had I had proof of it, because it indeed backed up first, I would have had my contents covered. No. Because it would have been filed under a different,
right.
It would have been filed under homeowner instead of flood, I think is how it would have worked.
Yep. Right.
Yeah, because I thought look, man, for a couple of weeks there, I was like, oh,
right. And that's why I always want to sit down
backed up.
Make sure you got your policies handy and just take that accounting. But for us, flooding down here happens just about any time. I mean, it's it's crazy because we live in a swamp.
No doubt. But now, Fit Blends of Denham Springs can help you with everything from meal prep to supplements. I love it that they serve breakfast all day in addition to the best ultra healthy wraps you can really get anywhere in Livingston Parish. They are home of the $5 Smoothie Friday and are an amazing sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast. Fit Blends Denham Springs, fast, fit food for you.
Some other endorsements, though, I was going to mention. Not all companies have it, but I've had one, and it's usually it depends on the company too. So I've got one company I know for sure because it's there on my quote screen. It's the mandatory evacuation. So in the event that you have a mandatory evacuation, loss of use, basically, they paid. There's two separate ones. There's $1,000 or a $1,500 option that you can add on to the policy. I'm not sure that every policy has that. Every company's different. That's the thing. It's like every individual independent home company that we represent has different things in their policies.
Sure.
I mean, I actually learned something about a couple of them that, I didn't even realize that was already built into the policy. I had two customers that got checks right away, and it was for their frozen foods and loss of use there because it was mandatory evacuation or for the area. But they got a check right away. But they had to file a claim though. Mm-hmm. So they're just not going to cut you a check because you happen to live in that address that would have worked for them. Yeah. But they had filed claims for something else, and they got those checks cut to them immediately, and they're still working on the other claims. So I mean, that's another one. There's just a lot to sit down, especially with when you sit down and talk to them, there's a lot to look at. Make sure everything is replacement cost.
Yeah.
Don't get actual cash value because actual cash value, of course, is everything that's depreciated.
Yeah. So if you got a 9-year-old TV, you don't get what you paid for it brand new.
Yeah, because and TVs are cheap too. I mean, it's these days. But you want to, and the thing I've told people, especially new customers, how do I at least prove what I had in my house? I was like, you have a phone in your pocket, don't you? Yeah. Take a video, walk through your entire house, and that way you have a documented list, basically a video list of what was in your house. I mean, before we had, basically movie cameras in our pockets, it was, you had to write down a list of everything that you had, serial
timestamp pictures.
Yeah, right. So, and it was kind of tedious, but I mean, the easiest thing now is just.
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Glittering ornaments, fragrant wreaths, and wide-eyed wonder await you and your family this Christmas at Biltmore. Enjoy a guided tour of America's largest home, filled with shimmering Christmas trees and adorned in all its Yuletide glory. Then make the most of your visit and imagine yourself as a holiday guest of the Vanderbilts at one of our overnight properties. Explore overnight stays and ticket packages at Biltmore.com.
Click the record button, walk through your house. You'll record everything, every piece of furniture you got, all your TVs, even I'm not going to say thumb through all your clothes, but go in your closet and, just everything that has some value to it. I mean, just
open your fridge and record your food.
Just record everything that you got. I mean, that's always a good thing to do pre-storm, stuff like that. So
yeah, I did do that. I went through and videoed every room and all of that, just in the event of, because like you say, you can go back, you can refer back to it. And so, yeah, that would be another good endorsement to have. And it's important to mention that TWFG also writes, not only personal insurance, but business insurance.
Correct.
So one of the questions that I had that we discussed earlier was some businesses have, it's a almost like a business, I don't know if you call it a loss of business or business interruption insurance.
Correct.
Do you have policies like that?
There are some, but there has to be, the business interruption has to be a direct physical loss to the building.
Gotcha.
So whether that's just power going out or not, it's up to the interpretation of the individual company.
Right.
So a lot of times it has not been. Usually direct physical loss is if
trees fall on it.
Yeah, something like that, where you actually have actual direct physical loss. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So let me ask you, if you flood during a hurricane, okay, so and some people did, especially south of us. Does the coverage default to flood insurance at that point, or would it stay homeowners?
No, it would be, if it's an actual flooding event. So, I mean, and then you would have twofold claims at that point. So let's just say in the event of a hurricane comes through and it pushes some backwater from maybe a river or a creek or something like that, where it fills it up. It's dropping so much rain that it floods the house. Well, guess what? You're going to have a flood claim, and if you lost your roof, you're going to have a homeowner's claim. So you're going to have two claims. You're going to have two. So it's not going to be one or the other, because you're going to have to file two claims at that point. Because that does happen. I mean, because these rainstorms, I can remember it just rained and rained and rained at my house. I don't think it just ever stopped.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's the biggest fear a lot of times, is mostly around this area you're going to see a lot of flash flooding from the amount of rainfall that it dumps. But it would be that would be two separate claims. Two separate companies. So if you have actual flood water that comes up, even still during a hurricane, it's going to be, it's going to be one or the other, or both if need be. I mean,
gotcha.
Hopefully you don't have to do with both. I mean, one's bad enough.
One is bad enough. That's right.
So
yes. And important to note that, most people have like FEMA for their flood insurance. That's probably the most common, but TWFG does sell private flood insurance.
Yeah.
You do represent some people that sell.
Yes.
Flood insurance.
There's a couple of companies that do write private flood. Not so much right now, because they kind of in and out of the market, because they don't want to take on too much, because that's how you get bit and burned, basically. Yeah. But private flood is definitely an option. Problem with private flood is it's not federally backed, and in the event of the company goes bankrupt, you have a flood event. It's really a surplus lines type coverage. So. TWFG does have, we actually have an in-house product that we do use, but there's several other companies that write private flood.
Sure.
And I do. I mean, sometimes, and private flood is a little different than regular flood. So regular flood goes off of, you got to have your elevation certificate and all that. Private flood a lot of times is the one we use for TWFG. It uses the geographical maps basically of the area.
Sure.
So it's,
the flood maps.
Yeah, so it's kind of based off whatever the height is. So and they have their formulations, and I try not to get into all the minutiae of all that. But
you got to be Albert Einstein to figure those out.
That's not what I do. I just sell you the policy.
I gotcha. Now, okay, so one of the questions I got was, the hurricane came and left, and somebody walks outside, God forbid they got a tree on their house or whatever. They contact insurance. Insurance sends an adjuster out. He looks at it. And the insurance company then offers, I guess you'd call it a settlement. Here's what we are offering to pay you for this event.
Correct.
I guess, let's say hypothetically someone agrees with that and they say, okay, that's fair. I can become whole again with that amount of money. How is the payment process typically? So do they just at that point strike you a check and you get it and you subcontract it out or whatever? Planet provides a full range of residential and commercial landscape services, including plant and tree installs, grading and drainage, patio paver and retaining wall installs, and much more. Reach out to them at 225-252-4905. Planet, they are a world apart and a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast.
Yeah, now, and that's why I've always told people, always my customers, always get a contractor come out and look at it as well, because at least the contractor can negotiate, or they can talk back and forth. So that contractor and that adjuster can discuss back and forth, because there might be some things that contractor's seeing that maybe the adjuster didn't. Yeah, and so they can kind of go back and forth on things like that to get make sure everybody is made whole. But yeah, at that point, once they offer you something that you're comfortable with, the contractor can do the work with, and they'll get you to sign off on it. And once you signed off on it, that's it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Once that's basically you're agreeing to it at that point. And so they'll get you a check. Now, is there a limit to your payout? And this is something that, that would be, something that people probably miss sometimes, is the limit to that payout. In other words, let's say I'm trying to think of a good hypothetical situation, but I know with some declarations on your declaration page, it'll say up to $15,000 or up to $10,000. I'm trying to think of the scenario.
Well, those things would be, so the ones that are usually up to is like secondary, not your
food
main,
loss.
Not your main coverages. So your coverage A, which is your home, your coverage B, which is going to be like your fence, a shed, things not attached to the house, coverage C, which is your liability, and coverage D, which is loss of use. So in the event of that the house burns down or gets blown away, it's unlivable, you have to go rent something, those are your main coverages. Now there's now coverage, they will be up to a certain point, but it's like whatever those main coverages are, that's the limit basically, unless you have on your coverage A, if you have like an additional replacement on top of that. So if you hit the replacement cost at 100%, a lot of these companies will give you a 25% additional over and above that. So I mean that's kind of that's there. I tell people to get that, and I know we discussed that earlier, mainly because the cost of lumber could be, higher twice or, 10 times what it was when you bought the house.
The cost of gas. Yeah. It goes up and down. It's a commodity.
Right. Absolutely. But yeah, there's going to be a limit, even though if it says up to, there's a limit to every one of them.
Gotcha.
For sure. I mean, it's just without a real and I guess probably the biggest thing is what you may be thinking about is flood insurance is, when flooding events happened, if you got, even though you had like $250,000 in coverage on, your flood insurance, if you only had like 2 feet of water in your house and it didn't cost you but $40,000 to fix, they were only cutting you a check for $40,000.
I found that out the hard way, William Waldrep.
Yeah. They were not cutting you a check for $250,000 because, oh gosh, because the federal government broke to begin with, and everybody knows that.
Yeah, so. Yeah. And the bad thing was, and I was in this boat, and I'll freely admit it, I didn't do my research ahead of time, and thought that I knew, and I did not know, and I assumed that, hey, you flood and you have 250 grand worth of coverage, you get a check for 250 grand, right? Yeah. Well, so I was calculating my contents into what that insurance check would be. So I'm like, well, I mean, if I flood and they give me a $250,000 check, I can rebuy my contents. Right. I don't need a separate content policy. Boy, was I wrong. Yeah, I found that out the hard way.
That's why they have a separate contents policy.
Yeah, that was a hard conversation to have with the wife, William.
I can imagine so. I can only imagine. Look, I've had to have the hard conversations, for the past 3 weeks now. I mean, I've had to have that hard conversation with people over stuff that wasn't covered and things that will be covered, but it happens. I mean, it
does, and we're not in it every day. Right. And that's the advantage of these podcasts like this is it's a good way for people to catch that information on their convenience and just sit down and listen to what we have to say. Now, I'm going to give you another hypothetical. So let's say all those things happen. Your insurance company comes out, they adjust it, and then they send you that settlement. And you're like, well, wait a minute. There's no way I could fix that roof for this cost, or there's no way. What if you don't agree with the settlement? Is there like an appeals process?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a trickier. I try not to get into the middle of that because that's not part of. I mean, really, truly, that's not what I do.
Yeah,
because I'm just there to help. I procure your policy, and
so in other words, don't call the rep, whoever it is.
Yeah, don't get angry with us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something like. I mean, that's what happens. Unfortunately, at that point in time, is if you feel you're getting abused by the company, then it's time to hire an attorney. And of course, I've got to be done with it. I mean, I've got to step out of the middle of that part. And
that's why the great advice you gave earlier, which is, hey, get a contractor out there.
Yeah.
And at least that way you got an estimate from a contractor, and you can say, well, that's not what they're charging me.
Right. You know, and that's exactly why I've had contractors go out and do estimates, even if it's before the adjuster gets out. I want a contractor that's actually going to do the work and has been doing the work, as opposed to an adjuster, because a lot of the times during these cat claim times like this, these adjusters are not from here.
Yeah.
These adjusters are from out of state. They're third-party companies that they come in and do the adjusting. And it's no knock to them. They're out here doing a job, and they're, trying to help expedite the process of getting that done.
Yeah.
But sometimes they just don't know. I think, they don't know the area and, things like that. And then it's always just safe to have two estimates, because at least a lot of times those guys, especially roofers have a lot of experience dealing with homeowners insurance companies.
Yeah.
Because they do a lot of roof claims and things like that. They have people that are, experts in negotiating that stuff. And that's why I've always suggested just have a contractor come out and look at it and give you and a contractor that, is certainly is licensed by the board of contractors and has their own insurance.
Yeah.
That'd be a whole nother podcast for another day.
I look forward to that one. Stephanie Berthelot and the crew at SR Enterprise can handle it all, from sheetrock to texture to paint. Give Stephanie a call at 504-432-9284. SR Enterprise, where they spread the paint and you spread the word. Yeah, so another thing I want to talk about is a lot of people are hesitant to file, and this is claims in general, not necessarily after a storm, but anytime. They might be hesitant to file because they're worried their rates are going to increase at that point.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say that their rates will increase, because we've seen rates increase because of nothing due to, people filing claims. It's because of that reinsurance, like what we've talked about before, where the reinsurance following year, they increase their rate on the companies, so the companies, of course, are going to pass that along.
Sure.
So, I mean, in the event of a cat claims are not supposed to affect you. So, it's never, I would, that's what you pay insurance for. I mean, I do, whenever you talk to a customer, especially on my end, I've never encouraged them to go out and just file a bunch of frivolous claims just to see what they get paid out.
Right.
A lot of times I dissuade, like, if you've got, say, a fence blows over and it's your hurricane deductible happens to be $2,500 and the fence is, $2,700 to get. Are you really going to file a claim for an extra $200? I mean, that's up to the person.
Sure.
So that's why I have the conversation with them, like, do you really want to do this? I mean, I don't, because I don't have any control over what happens after, when it comes time for renewals. You might have a rate increase, you may not. I don't know. Cat claims are really not, supposed to, they're not going to file, they're not going to just kick you out because you have a cat claim during this time. And I'm sorry, and I keep saying cat claim because that's code for catastrophic.
Right. I figured.
Sorry. Probably should have.
It has nothing to do with cats.
Yeah, no.
We're not talking pet insurance.
Yeah, no. Texas is not coming through the house in cars, and that's an old Saturday Night Live joke.
That is, indeed it is. Toonses, the cat that could drive a car. Loved it. So to settle people's question there, technically they're not supposed to be able to raise your rate just because you file a claim for a hurricane. I mean, it's expected, you know.
They're not, and that's what people don't understand. A lot of times these companies they're not picking on you individually. They're looking at their whole book of business as a whole. And so, I mean, if they got, 20,000 people across the state of Louisiana, they're looking at, in the event something else happens, I may need to, kick my rates up a little bit for everybody in the event of, and it may be maybe somebody that's never even had a claim or has never had a storm pass by their house. Yeah. But it still affects, but the rating system is different across the entire state too. I mean, closer you get to the coast, it's different. I mean, it's way more expensive to live closer to the coast. Shocker.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And in some of those cases, like, one of the companies that we were looking at, a coastal company, their hurricane deductible was 10%.
Wow.
So and it's the odd kind of back and forth on that is if I'm buying a house that's sitting on the beach, say in like Waveland or something like that, nice quiet town. I mean, those houses to build on the beach or what? You spend $1 million.
Oh yeah.
And then if you got, but now if you're spending $1 million. I mean, you might have the money for the 10%, but it's it's a give and take. You just got to know what you're comfortable with stomaching, and that's another And
it makes sense from both
right.
the insurance and standpoint as well, because if you have a beach house in Waveland, there's a good chance you're going to file a claim at some point. I mean, a storm goes that direction once every couple of years, and the insurance companies know that. Right. So they're trying to protect themselves.
All those houses down in Port Fourchon and and got Grand Island and all that. It's just
decimated.
Yeah.
Totally. It's horrible. Just totally decimated, especially Grand Isle. From what I understand, I haven't been down there, but I have a friend who is a fireman that is down there right now, and he'll be down there about another month and a half because they're assisting. And he said, "Man, you wouldn't believe it.
Oh, I'm sure it's a mess.
It's crazy." So what are some things, William, that you would say people assume are covered after a storm that are not? I know one of the things I'll say it, chainsaws and generators, did you get any calls about people wanting money for chainsaws?
That was the biggest call, like just the random calls that I got. Yeah, that was the most that I got is this covered. And it's I had to go, my other generator died, and I had to go buy a new one. Is my insurance going to cover that? Like, well, how much did you spend on the generator? Well, $800. I'm like, well, even if they did, I said you typically would have over $1,000 deductible to begin with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now if you had like a Generac attached to your house and it caught fire, then we're talking about something different. But no, I did. I got a lot of those questions. No, I mean, stuff like that doesn't typically get covered because, I mean, if they had to cover all that stuff, I mean, insurance become almost unaffordable. Because, and another thing is like that I got calls on, if a tree was down in somebody's yard, are they going to, can I file a claim for the downed tree?
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woo-hooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Well, did it hit your house? No. I'm like, no, cut it up. I mean, it's your responsibility at that point. It's time for you. You got to cut it up.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they don't cover stuff like that. I was like, no, because I mean,
it didn't damage anything.
It didn't damage anything. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of times people don't realize that they're only going to cut. So if the tree falls on the house, they're only going to cut away and pay for what's away from the house. Like they're not going to cut the whole tree up.
No,
they're going to cut to a certain point. They're going to pay you for that portion of it, and the rest of the tree is yours.
That's right. So. And I'll give you a good example of me. And what happened to me is I had a gigantic oak tree it was on my property, and it had grown under my chain link fence. So I guess you could say the roots had grown under it. Not only the roots, some of the tree had kind of grown up behind the chain link fence. Well, it fell. I mean, and uprooted and actually split in half and uprooted the chain link. I mean, took the chain link fence out right there, ripped it up. So, it was kind of different because the question I got asked was, did the tree fall on the fence? I said, no, it fell under it. Wrap your mind around that. It fell under the fence. And they're like, what? And I said, and then I explained the story. Yeah. But they said the exact same thing. They said, well, the insurance would pay to cut it away because you have to replace your fence. Correct. You can't replace your fence with a tree sitting there. Right. So whatever it takes to cut it away from the fence, they'll pay to that point. Yes. And then everything else is on the customer. Yeah, look, I was blessed. It didn't hit anything other than that, and I'll take that damage over going through my house any day of the week.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
William Waldrep of TWFG Insurance in Denham Springs can service all of your insurance needs. Offering auto, life, health, and commercial insurance, William Waldrep of TWFG Insurance is a proud supporter of Local Leaders, the podcast.
But it's a good point to. You have to have damage to your actual insured property. Now, I'll even caveat that with something I did not know. And I thought I have researched insurance pretty good, but I did not know that structures that were detached from your house were actually covered. Like if you had a big shed built in your backyard that was not a part of your house, you just built it back there, and the door flew off, the door's covered.
Yeah, and that's your coverage B. So that's your secondary coverage under that. So that's another thing that most people don't think about is, like when you trying to do an annual audit on yourself, like pull out your, if you have flood insurance, if you got homeowners insurance, your auto insurance, pull those things out at least around, I'd say tax time, because that's kind of when most people are either spring cleaning, doing their taxes, they're looking at stuff like that. That's the best time in my mind, I guess, to do it. It could be everybody's different though. Sure. But that way you can kind of look at it because, hey, maybe in the past year you've built another shed in the back, and maybe your coverage B is only like $2,600, but I spent $5,000 on this nice little shed back here. So if a tree falls on it, I certainly don't want to be, out all that. No. So I mean, that's kind of the way you can be mindful, because I don't know that you built a shed in the backyard. Yeah, because we're not going to call you. We're not going to call you up once a year. Hey, did you build anything new in the yard? Yeah. So just want to make sure, and it's just not. I mean, because we had to make that call. I mean, that'd be frivolous. Because I'm in this business, I've learned that customers are different creatures altogether. There's going to be the customers that need you to hold their hand. And then there's going to be the customers that don't want to talk to you. Yeah. And then there's the customer that only wants to talk to you when something's wrong. Right. And then they'll never leave you alone. Yeah. Customers are completely different animals altogether. So you just got to know how to handle each one of them individually. That's right. And so it's, those things are, we don't know sometimes that you did something extra to your house, or if you did. That's a great point. And another reason that you should use a local insurance agent of some sort is at least you can make an appointment with them, maybe sit down and just go over your coverages. Look, one thing we brought up earlier, housing values have went through the roof. There's no inventory right now. Right. House hits the market, sells in 3 days. And so there's no inventory. What happens when there is low or no inventory is housing values shoot through the roof. I was actually talking to our assessor here in Livingston Parish just the other day, and he had mentioned that housing values have just skyrocketed. Right. He's looking at them. He's looking at the closed housing sales. And so from his aspect, that raises the assessed value of the house, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really no different with your insurance. If you only covered your house for the value it was last year, you may want to look at what the value of it is this year, because you may be undercovered.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of those policies, some that we do have, they do have an inflation guard built into them. So a lot of times they 2% is usually the inflation guard that some of those companies will build into the policies. I mean, that's not every company, and that's certainly not. You got to make sure you got it. And that's probably another endorsement that you can look and see if you have it or if the company even offers it. But an inflation guard is probably the best way to combat that. I mean, in the event of
no doubt about it. I think mine is written and it'll say the value of whatever I have the insurance for it, and then it has an additional. Yeah, and that additional, I think it's like $24,000 in my case or something like that. Or I don't know.
Yeah, that's the additional replacement cost. So, but that's only in the event of that it burns completely to the ground.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean it's it's good to have.
Yeah.
So.
Look, it's all about peace of mind in the end, and I've been through several, as of all of us, several catastrophes, and the last thing you want to have to worry about is insurance, and is this covered? And we all learned a lot of hard lessons in 2016, and so hopefully people have kind of taken that inventory of what their insurance looks like, but once a year, sit down with your agent and just say, hey, man, let's just review. And your agent will typically know when they're looking at your policy. They'll know things that maybe are lacking, and they'll make suggestions.
Right.
Have you looked at maybe adding a sewer stamp to this or whatever? So that's, to me, where the role of the insurance agent comes in.
Yeah.
And why I feel it's so important to stay away from just online companies that all you can do is talk to someone on the phone.
Yeah.
Because your relationship with your agent, to me, that's as important as your relationship with your priest, maybe.
Right.
I don't know about that important, but that was kind of a weird segue. Yeah. You're my priest now.
No, God. Look, we hear people's problems all the time. But certainly, I mean, I'm not, I'm not in the business to offer spiritual advice, that's for sure. But,
that's good. BJ Pawn and Gun in Denham Springs wants to buy your unwanted gold jewelry, gold coins, and gold bullion. With 30 years of experience operating in the Livingston Parish area, BJ Pawn wants to be your source when selling your gold. So stop by BJ Pawn today for a no-obligation offer. BJ Pawn, a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast.
I've had that, where there are some companies that do where we represent, but they have an online presence where they're direct to consumer.
Sure, and that's fine because you're representing me on the front end, for example.
And but the problem is some of these companies that are direct to consumer is they cut us out, and it's a little cheaper, so we can never compete price wise, but basically the hang up is you have to deal with somebody in the event you have an issue. You got to deal with a 1-800 number the entire time. There's not a me that you can go sit down and talk to, or another agent or your agent to go sit down and talk to.
That's right.
You're kind of hung with, stuck with that.
And they're not in the area. They don't know, like 2016. I mean, you could not grasp what 2016 was unless you lived through it.
Right.
And you were here. And so if you're someone in Oklahoma and may have all the best intentions in the world, they don't get it.
Yeah.
There's no way they could get what we went through as a community,
right?
And but at least your agent here can, and that person in the event that you need some help and you need someone to shake a tree or something, they can mediate that process a little bit for you.
Absolutely.
Maybe send an email or give a call.
Well, because we're representing you at the end of the day. I mean, we do have to represent the company, but we do represent the customer as well. We want to take care of the customer because. That's what we're here for. I mean, that's
That's right. And TWFG, not a little company by any means.
Oh no,
one of the largest private insurers in the country.
We are the 26th on the list as far as independent agencies go amongst the country. But in the South, between Texas and Louisiana, we're the number one independent agency as a whole between Texas and Louisiana. So
fantastic.
There's, I think as of this year, I think there's 18 or 19 of us here in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And, there's 200 or better in Texas.
There's
a bunch of us in Texas.
Big time in Texas.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, and that's being such a kind of not the biggest company, but being a really large company, it does allow us to have more options for people. And it's going to allow us to also bring our own little products to market soon. So hopefully we'll actually have a TWFG, auto carrier.
Yeah.
They're testing it in Texas right now. So hopefully that'll come to market soon. We do have some other companies that are wanting to come to market, but it's just with all these, hurricanes. They get out of here. I mean,
so go somewhere else for a little while.
2 years and God, what we've dealt with.
It's just crazy. So. Now, I do want to mention everybody that, as we said earlier, TWFG writes bunch of different insurances. They have a lot of different business insurances. So reach out to them even, in the event that you need like general liability insurance maybe for your company.
Yeah, I've been pushing workers' comp pretty hard. So if
big deal.
Any
trades,
restaurant owner, that's we've been actually have some trying to help with those restaurant owners because I know that's been a big, since COVID. I mean, one, if you can get people to come in and work for you, but that's the thing is like you've had a lot of these people are still working, still trying to make a dollar, and we'll try to work and save them some money. So yeah, there's we've got some good products that I'd just sit down with them and kind of show them because in the end they're a small business owner and so am I. So
that's right.
If I can help them succeed, that's all that matters.
That's it. And if you want some more information or you want to see how to contact William, he does have a Facebook. It is TWFG Insurance William Waldrep. You just type that in and it'll pull it up. You can go there. How would what's your phone number or email? Or whatever?
Phone number. You can call the office directly. It's 225-667-2040.
There you go.
Or if my email should be on my Facebook page. It's my first initial W and then my last name Waldrep at TWFG Insurance. So W Waldrep at TWFG Insurance. So if you want to email me or anything like that, you can feel free to. We're in between websites as far as we had one for a while and it just trying to change some things up. So it's dormant at the moment. So but yeah, Facebook page usually has some good info. And if you go to twfg.com / William Waldrep, we have an agent page with TWFG. So, and in the meantime, I'll work on the other one. So.
Fantastic. So yeah, reach out to him if you're in need of looking over your insurances and make an appointment with William. He'll sit down, he'll go over what you got and see if, maybe he can beat what you got going on. I mean, people love to save money.
Right.
People love to save money. So, and the good thing is you're going with a local agent. As I said, he's right there in the Antique District, right across from City Hall in the Art Council building, in the historic part of Denham Springs, Louisiana.
That's right.
And so we appreciate you coming on. William thought it was real important that he come on and discuss this. I did too, and a lot of my listeners did too. So hopefully we helped y'all out a little bit today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is probably one of those things you probably should do before hurricane season starts. It's just kind of a quick, it doesn't even have to be a long form. You can do a quick something to sit that out there to get to customers, maybe just to get it fresh in their mind. And it might there just to help everybody. I mean, I don't want anybody caught in some of the situations that we've been seeing as far as either not having adequate coverage or not having coverage at all. I've come across a couple of them where they were with another agent and, where they didn't have proper coverage. And so, you take that phone call and that's never a fun thing. But that's something that, I want to try to just make people more aware, I guess, going forward is like as hurricane season approaches, like let's sit down, even if you're not my customer, sit down, pull out your policy and kind of look at it. Make sure you are covered and covered properly and just understand in the event of what you're getting into if something were to happen. So.
Well, yeah. And the last thing you want to do is find that out after the fact.
Yeah, no, that's
proactive, especially with insurance.
Because the worst thing you can do is to pull out your deck page the minute the storm is upon your house and be like, oh, this policy expired last month, or,
Yeah,
or wait, God, my deductible is what now?
Yeah,
So,
you don't want to do all that.
No.
So that's what William's here for. I do want to thank everyone for watching and listening to Local Leaders, the podcast. You can check us out on the web at localleadersthepodcast.com. Of course, we have a Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those sorts of things. So
got it all.
Yeah, got it all. So check us out. Give us a like or a subscribe if you like the information. I want to thank all of my sponsors, of which TWFG is one. They support Local Leaders of Podcast, and we support them, and so it's just a match made in heaven there, William, on that, to say the least. Thank you again for watching. I am Jim Chapman, reminding you to love your community, support local business like TWFG Insurance, and keep leading. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. This is Representative Buddy Mincy Jr. I represent the Denham Springs and the Walker area, and I'm here today to talk to you about a very important topic. According to the 2020 census, Louisiana is the third hungriest state in the nation. This means 1 in 4 children are living in a food insecure home. Food insecurity is, simply put, a lack of access to affordable and nutritious food. Livingston Parish Public Schools have over 26,000 students, and approximately 7,825 of those students fall under the definition of food insecure. This is why Mighty Moms started the Full Tummy Project in 2010. For more information on Mighty Moms and the Full Tummy Project, visit mightymomsgo.org and find out how you can sponsor a child for the 2021 school year and help us end childhood hunger in our community.
Dane Arnold with iTrade Exchange has been enabling small business in the Livingston Parish area to save cash through his network of over 300 participating Livingston Parish businesses. Saving cash by trading services with other exchange members is what iTrade Exchange is all about. For more information, contact Dane Arnold at 225-205-3640 or visit iTradeExchange.biz.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woo-hooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.